Hey NAI football fans, Cory Thorpe here with another edition of the NAIFBALL podcast powered by AdCraft USA, your custom apparel, merch, and uniform experts. Our friends at AdCraft have been with us for many years now. They've run web stores for us multiple times. These guys are NAI fans and family who are experts in the apparel and merchandise world. AdCraft allows you to take the hassle out of ordering. Let their knowledgeable design and customer service staff handle everything from hosting the store online, shipping the product, and helping your customers so you can get back to the game. Find them online at adcraftusa.com. All right, NAI football fans, this is Cory Thorpe here for another edition of the NAIFBALL podcast. You see, tonight I have no guests, I have no John, I have no intern. I am truly alone, but it's the very last preview of the season. After this, next week, we go into live shows. That's right, live dadgum shows. I'm excited. Another season of live shows. We get to talk football. Tonight, we end in our backyard with the Sun Conference. We started just a little north of here with the Appalachian. We've gone all around the country, and we end up back home right in the Sun Conference. Love it. This is going to be the conference that the team that I'm going to be helping out, Thomas, is going to be joining. I confirmed that they will be members of the Sun for football and flag football when they actually join. But that won't be till next year. This year, we start at, as always, the bottom. And we start with Florida Memorial, the Lions, the newbies on the block, still breaking in their team. I think this will be their third year. Last year, the Lions went 2-9. They were seventh bottom in the division, the conference, kind of both and, with 4.44 yards per play offensively. They were sixth defensively with 5.93 yards per play, and that ended up with a negative 1.5 yards per play, which isn't bad for a last place team. George Young at running back is returning for them nearly 1,000 yards on the ground. Also had a receiving touchdown and 219 receiving yards. Linebacker Josh Mims had 79 tackles, forced fumble, pick, pass breakup. They literally have zero seniors. Absolutely zero seniors. I mean, this is a third-year squad. So what can we expect this year then out of Florida Memorial? Well, you would expect some growth, except that, and you'll hear this time and again, they play an awful hard schedule. With the Sun breaking off of the Mid-South, they were not able to get a scheduling alliance with the Mid-South. They're having to do some really tough games this year to fill out their schedule. For example, Florida Memorial plays D2 Edward Waters in the Big Cat Classic, the Lions versus the Tigers. I bet that's a fun one. And then the next week, they travel to Baton Rouge and play Southern University. And then they have 2 games against Warner on this schedule, along with 2 games against Southeastern before ending their season against Fort Lauderdale, which should be an easy game. They also have 2 against Ave Maria, I think. No, I can't read. They have 1 against Ave Maria. And so to play those 2 HBCU squads in Southern and in Edward Waters, that's a hard way to get in your out of conference games. There are a lot of teams that are putting in some hard ones. Heck, the University of Fort Lauderdale is effectively almost a full conference member. They're going to be playing almost everybody here. So the question is, can the Lions get out of the basement? That's going to be difficult. Seeing that, it's only them and the next team up, and that's going to be the Warner Royals, 3-8 a year ago. They end their season with a horrible loss to Weber, getting beat by about 40 points to their rivals across the lake, and that's not what you want to be ending your season with. Now, Warner a year ago was 5th offensively, almost 5 yards per play, but they were bottom in the Sun division in defense with 6.09 yards per play given up. That gives them that net yards per play of negative 1.15. So they do return Trevon Jackson with 677 yards of receiving. They do return their quarterback, a majority of their running backs, most of their wide receivers, most of their D. This is another one of those young teams. On defense, they feature Ashton Mincy and Rodolson Petit, who combined for 2 forced fumbles, 2 picks, and 4 pass breakups there. They also have a little bit of a hard road to hoe there. They make the trip up and over to the University of West Florida in Pensacola, as well as make the trip to, I'm going to butcher this name, Natchitoches? Natchitoches? Natchitoches. I think it's Natchitoches. Y'all correct me down in the comments. I butchered it. Stephen F. Austin is who they're playing there. They also get in a game against Fort Lauderdale. And going through the schedule, that is not what you want to do. They play Kaiser twice. This is going to be a hard one for Warner. West Florida is not that far removed from a national championship win. And Stephen F. Austin is nothing to scoff at there. That's going to be hard. And so for me, out of these two teams that are in this midsection here, do as we have the entire rest of the year. The team that is most likely to get out, I think, is going to be Florida Memorial. They're going to continue to develop as a squad. They have a very young team. Like I said, literally no seniors. And so I could see them making a play and ruining some folks' season. Now, next up on our list is going to be a team that a lot of you are going to be going, why are they there? That's happened a time or two this offseason. That's going to be the Southeastern Fire. They had a really good defense in their 8-3 season, giving up 4.83 yards per play, good for 3rd in the division. But their offense struggled. 6th in offensive yards per play, about 4.5 yards, and that leaves them in the negative. They do return double massless Trenton Serloff, Curtis Williams, Mark Viacek, Khalid Scott, Aaron Walton, and obviously Brian Bell, who, when healthy, is one of the better running backs out there. If not in the Sun Conference alone, then in the nation. When he's healthy, he's a great player. Devil Massalis is the only all-conference pick that is returning for Southeastern. But you do return a little bit off that defense, those 4 picks there. They're off of your defense. But you're losing your quarterback, most of your running back production, and half your wide receivers. I'll have to look out. You get a good game to look at off the jump. You play North American University at home, and you can kind of get an idea from North American University whether or not your offense is going to take shape in the way that you want it to. Maybe you do a little addition by subtraction. Cooper Jones was a good quarterback last year. We'll see who they've got behind them. You are breaking in also. You've got an interim head coach as their head coach leaves in the spring. That's going to be hard. You're losing Lauren Parker, who was a 1,000-yard rusher. You're losing Ian Hinkle, who was a good blocker. Ray Lewis at offensive line, and your kicker and your punter. So what will Southeastern be? And for those who can't tell, that is Victory Field behind me, home of the Southeastern Fire. And yes, they do have fire at their games. I was fortunate enough to go in that 2020 season, and I sat right about, right there behind the camera, up a couple of levels there, and beautiful field, beautiful setup there. Right over there is the baseball field, and they kind of smushed together. Beautiful setup there in Lakeland. If you ever get a chance to go, it's one of the nicest stadiums that you're going to find in the NAIA. They play North American, get off to that start there, but then they have to play at Savannah State, which is not going to be an easy one. And they repeat with St. Thomas this year, along with Florida Memorial. Honestly, if I'm Southeastern, St. Thomas is not the one I would have wanted to repeat on, because the guys, they're from Miami Gardens, are on the come up, and we'll have to see what they do. Got a new field put in by our friends at Mommy Bay Turf Nation. Can't wait to see what that looks like under the lights, but just going to be a tough road to hoe for Southeastern. You've got to get that offense going in the way that Southeastern's offense, wants to go. The Sun Conference is sort of like the KCAC in that they want to play fast, they want to play hard, they want to play just play. They're a heavy tempo conference. And Southeastern's going to have to do better offensively than they did a year ago. We'll see what happens in Lakeland. Right ahead of them are the Weber Warriors with their new turf field. They were 3-8 a year ago. Were very middle of the road. 5.09 yards per play, good for fourth offensively. 5.40 yards defensively given up, giving them a negative .31 net yards per play. Now the Warriors, which, thanks for the swag, are returning Tremont Bright, 1,000-yard rusher. And they return a whole lot. You're hearing this again and again because it's the real deal. Weber returns their quarterback, their running backs, their wide receivers. But what they do have issues with is their quarterback or their defense. They return very few defensively. About the only ones that they're returning are defensive back Devontae Harris, who had a pick six last year along with a forced fumble, and linebacker Colton Cormier, both all-conference selections. Weber starts off versus Lincoln University, who had to call a game off, I believe, against Southeastern last year. They also play Atlantis University, which is not going to be a countable game. They play at Cumberland University in Lebanon. Then they play Fort Lauderdale. But then near the end of the season, they play Virginia University Lynchburg, which, honestly, I'll tell you all the truth. I don't know much about Virginia University of Lynchburg. I will look and I will tell you that they're NCCAA. They are, looks to be an HBCU. And so they're not in NCAA, they're not NAIA, they are in between. So Weber gets a fairly easy out-of-conference schedule. And looking at the rest of their games, I don't see any Sun Conference teams that they are repeating against. This could be a really good shot for Weber to continue to grow as a team and to really make a push into that top echelon of the Sun Conference. And now the last one in this setup are the Gyrenes. Don't ask me what a Gyrene is. I don't particularly know. They have Bulldog on their logo. I don't think that's a Gyrene. But they were third last year in the conference in offensive yards per play with 5.5 yards. Fifth in defensive yards per play, though, with 5.77 yards given up, and that is what has them in the negative. They do return a lot offensively, outside of quarterback Will Tate, who was a senior last year. But they do return the majority of their running backs. They return 2 all-conference wide receivers in Roman Newkirk and Joshua Jenkins. They return tight end Brock Summers, who was more of a blocking back, and 2 all-conference offensive linemen in Jose Fernandez and Bennett Landry. Defensively, the only all-conference guy they're bringing back is Shane O'Brien with 77 tackles and 3 picks. They do lose Connor Jewell, 48 tackles, 5.5 tackles for loss, and Jalen Robinson, 39 tackles, 9.5 sacks from a year ago, but they do return the majority of their defense. And so, at this point, if you're looking at Southeastern, Weber, Ave Maria, well, let's look at Ave Maria's schedule. They play at Madonna to open up. Then they host Lawrence Tech. Then they play at Fort Lauderdale, at Salisbury, who's Division III. And like Weber, they do not repeat any of their Sun Conference games. So they get to only play everyone once. But you do have 2 teams out of the Mid-States Football Association that you have to take on. That's going to be hard, but you've got the offense coming back to do it if you've got a quarterback. That's going to be the thing. Honestly, out of this bunch, I could see Weber playing that spoiler role that Ave Maria played last year when they went 5-6. And really, honestly, they had a chance at the end of the year to spoil Kaiser's 9-3. At that point, 8 and 2 record, or 7-2 record. I can't do math, guys. They had a chance to spoil that 7-2 record of Kaiser and put a dent in their playoff hopes. So now we get to And so now finally we get to the top 2 contenders. And we start there with Kaiser. They were second across the board last year, 5.73 yards per play offensively, 4.44 yards defensively given up, good for 1.29 yards per play. And they bring back a large portion of their team, whether it be Jonathan Mosley, who when he was playing was the answer. Kaiser had a heck of a time early on in the season with finding their quarterback. That was a struggle for them early on. They found Jonathan Mosley later on in the season, only had 504 passing yards, but a 71.2 completion percentage with 7.6 yards per attempt, which is not bad. 6 touchdowns, no interceptions. Also had 3 touchdowns on the ground and 4 yards, almost 5 yards per carry on 280 rush yards, which tells me that he wasn't getting sacked a whole lot, which makes sense seeing that they have Cody Olsen and Colton Takis coming back on their offensive line. They also returned Marcus Burgess, who has been a steady Eddie for them. 1,757 yards and 19 touchdowns. They may be Seahawk fast, but boy, do they pound the rock as good as any team in the nation. They also returned Jerson Jocks, a great wide receiver, only 482 yards a year ago, 5 touchdowns. It was hard going there at first there where they couldn't bring back their quarterback. They are going to be missing Caleb Walls with a kick return touchdown and 6 receiving touchdowns, and Jefferson Jones on the offensive line. Defensively, they bring back a really talented secondary, whether it be Byron Fraley, Sage Chin Young, who I swear has been at Kaiser for 12 years now, Wesley Scott, Wendell Fillard. Really the only piece that they do not bring back is Victor Alvarez Jr. And yes, Alvarez Jr. did have 7 sacks and 11.5 tackles for loss. But you do still have Alessandro Cantillo with 9.5 tackles for loss and 5.5 yards, or 5.5 sacks. That's, man, that is a lot coming back. Most of your defense, most of your wide receivers, your quarterbacks, and basically your entire running back stable. Are you going to stay atop the sun and maintain your hold on the sun? You got to get started a little bit sooner than you did last year. But at the top are the new boys, are the new kids in town, other than Florida Memorial. That is St. Thomas. The Bobcats went 9-2 a year ago, but both of those losses were in conference and really ended their season. They were first offensively with 5.79 yards per play, first defensively with 4.22 yards per play. They do have a bit of a tough road ahead of them. They play at Butler, which, yes, I believe is a Pioneer team, but that's still going to be a toughie, traveling to Indianapolis. You then, the next week, play St. Xavier in Chicago, and then return home to play North American University. You then have to play Southeastern twice. Once at the end of September, and once your last game at Victory Field in Lakeland. But if you can manage to beat Southeastern in September at your place and Kaiser in early October at your place, you take the stranglehold of the sun if you're St. Thomas. Because Kaiser does also has a bit of a rough schedule. They play Warner twice, of course, there, like we mentioned earlier, but they play Valdosta State in Valdosta, Georgia, a game that, Lord willing, the creek don't rise, I'll be at. They play Mississippi College at Mississippi College, and then Lindenwood University, the other Lindenwood, the one that was not NAIA, in St. Charles. D2 school. That's a tough road to hoe for Kaiser, and you're going to have to, if you're the Seahawks, you're going to have to keep St. Thomas off your back. How will this go? Last year, St. Thomas was, I believe, my dark horse, and boy, was I right. They returned, like I said, their quarterback. They returned their starting running back, Rontavious Farmer, with 858 rushing yards. They returned both Saquon Geno-Pierre with 2 punt return touchdowns, along with 421 receiving yards, and Khalid Rizal, who had 534 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns. You have an all-conference lineman, Keon Phillips, coming back. You have 2 all-conference defensive linemen coming back in Michael Torrance and Khalil Bryan. You have 3 all-conference linebackers, 2 on the outside, Donnell Bennett and Nicholas Engler. And then you have Joey Fleurjust on the inside that's coming back. You have Sidney Porter and Ja'Cory Austin coming back in your defensive secondary. Really, the only piece for your very young team that you're going to lose is Eric Demps, who was a big piece, 9 touchdowns on 474 yards receiving. But like we said for Florida Memorial, you're still very young. And so that makes a big difference there for St. Thomas. You've gotten a taste of the big time now. Can you round the corner and beat the teams not only at the bottom of your division, but at the top? Can you go and beat the Southeasterns and Kaisers of your league there? That's the problem, or that was the problem last year for St. Thomas. They got off to this great start, but then they went and lost to Southeastern at home, turned around the next week against Kaiser, and lost at West Palm Beach. And after that, their season was effectively over. This year, you get another shot at it. You don't have them back-to-back. You play Fort Lauderdale at your place in between. You get to rest up because both of those teams are physical. I think, though, as I look over the schedules and I look over the who's coming back, this is a 2-horse race between Kaiser and St. Thomas. Southeastern's going to have to show me that they are on their way back up, because their season last year, while good in the W's and L's, was not good on the stats. Consistently looking at those box scores and being underwhelmed. And out of those 2 horses at the top, I got to go with Kaiser. They are the seasoned veteran now of winning the Sun Division, the Sun Conference. Could St. Thomas win? Yeah. It'd be another great step in Bobcat football. It would not shock me in the slightest. But I'm going to take Kaiser on this. And then I think for my dark horse, I'm going to pick Weber. I think they're dangerous. Warner certainly knows they're dangerous after they exploded for 70 points on them. That was, if I remember the box score correctly, that's 11-plus yards per play for Weber. It's hard to do 11-plus yards per play on air, let alone for an entire game with the defense there. Give me Weber for the dark horse. Look for Ave Maria to hold serve, hopefully. We'll see if they take a step back, finding a new signal caller. Sun Division is not to be trifled with, and when you add Thomas and their military transition football next season, that's going to be a big add for you. We'll see what the Sun Division can do. You really, if you're the Sun, you really want to add a couple other teams. And when you look at the Sun Conference itself, I know SCAD's moving out. Bigger picture here. There's a possibility that you could get... SCAD's not moving out. It's UCSB that's moving out. You've got 8 that play normally for something like baseball. Southeastern, St. Thomas, Warner, Kaiser, Weber, UCSB, Florida Memorial, Ave Maria, and my lovable losers, Thomas. With Thomas in there, pushing you to 7 teams, really the Sun needs to pick up a few more teams here. Whether you look to pick up maybe uh, Fort Lauderdale in a few years, whether you can develop, maybe you go raid some of these southern states squads, or maybe you can convince some of the uh, other teams from the southeast to join you. Let's see who's in the southern states, because right now the southern states doesn't have football. Who could you feasibly see out of the southern states? You might be able to pull someone like maybe Life, U-Mobile, maybe Loyola. It'd be a big pick. Maybe even get Stillman to play football. That'd be fun to have another HBCU. But if you're the Sun, you've got to figure out your situation, because if not, you risk doing to yourself what the Frontier does every year. Even if you play really good football, you risk cannibalizing yourself. If you're only going to run with 7, 8 teams, you need to make a schedule out of this. And as we've seen from other teams over the years, playing these D2 and D3 schools is not a sustainable model to get into the playoffs. Because if you don't look good against those D2, D3 schools, like it or not, that still penalizes you a little bit. A loss is a loss. Now, maybe, yes, this helps raise some money for the Sun as a whole. And now you can entice some folks to come over and play football with you. We shall see. It is a conference that needs to add a couple more members, in my opinion. I think Mobile would be a good fit if you can get them there. So that would be my pick there. Maybe you can convince maybe some like a Middle Georgia State. I know you're not gonna get Georgia Gwinnett to come over and play. And obviously, if they did, they probably would go to the Appalachian and play neighbor Reinhardt. Same thing goes for Truett McConnell there in the AAC. They'd probably join the AAC for football if they added it. So for the Sun Conference, you're kind of over a barrel. Maybe you can convince Point to come over, since they're a little further south than say a Faulkner is. Give Thomas someone to play against. I don't know. We'll see. It certainly will be interesting. And remember, if you are listening to this when it comes out, that'll be Tuesday the 16th of August. We will be having a live show on Monday, August 22nd, going through all of our picks. And we will, I don't know that we'll pick the playoffs. We'll give our national champions, obviously. And, jokingly hold ourselves to them. But that will be the first live show ahead of Thursday night's opening games. I think I've counted 3 or 4 of them there on Thursday the 25th. So, we have completed it. All 12 conferences and divisions of the NAIA and the football landscape, we have done it. And ladies and gentlemen, that means that there's only one thing remaining, and that's putting toe to leather, getting yet another season kicked off for NAIA football. I'm so excited. Guys, if you love what we do, if you enjoy what we do, our Patreon is super affordable, $1 a month. We do some stuff just for our patrons in articles and getting some sneak peeks at stuff. So join us over there. That's the best way to support what we do. If you are a player in NAIA football, the best thing you can do for us right now is to follow us, make sure your teammates are following us, and make sure that all of y'all are subscribed to us on YouTube, because that will turn into money just as fast. Right now, we stand at 632 subscribers as of right now, and we just need the 1,000 to get where we need to go in the monetization level. Once we get there, we'll be asking for the watch hours, but our watch hours are doing better than they have all season. So, guys, thank you so much for your support week in and week out. It means the world to me and John, and we are so grateful that y'all want to come along with us and promote this level of football, which, to me, other than the FBS squads, this is the best there is. I love it, and I've been fully converted over to loving it just as much as y'all do. So, for my buddy John Cooper, who is doing 2-a-days of his own right now, we will see y'all on the live show. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the NAIF Ball Podcast presented by AdCraft USA. Be sure to contact them for all your custom apparel, merch, and uniform needs. Thanks also to Mommy Bay Turf and Turf Nation, as well as Leading Edge Fundraising for their support of the podcast. If you enjoy the show, subscribe to the podcast as well as to our YouTube channel. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. As always, if you'd like to support what we do, head over to patreon.com/NAIAFBALL and become a patron. We can't do what we do without our sponsors and listeners like you.